Hi, today I'd like to invite you to give up the pursuit of purpose. Hi, I'm Danette Lane, and I'm the maven of change and a reinvention architect. And what that means is I've been through a lot of change. I've made a lot of changes and reinvented myself. And now I'm helping other people reinvent themselves with each evolution, both myself and my clients. I'm working in the personal development field, helping women to grow themselves as well as to grow their business or their expression of themselves, right? So here's my question. See if this applies to you. Have you been trying to find your fit or your purpose, or to have some sense of meaning, to not only make sense out of your life, but also to do something with your life that has meaning, some kind of expression, experience that gives you a deeper sense of satisfaction than just showing up and performing the roles that you've signed up to do in your life, something that affects you at a deeper level. Your soul has some sense of satisfaction. Well, what if I told you that the answer is to give up the quest for purpose? I know that's very counterintuitive to what's going on out in the industry today, around the world, but I would like to invite you to do that. And here's why. One, we're pursuing our purpose for a couple of reasons. One, we've been told that we have one, right? That's really popular. There's a lot of hype. It's really a thing right now by a lot of well-meaning people who are trying to help people make sense out of life, because a lot of us are lost, right? There's a lot of stuff going on, and we want to find purpose in all this crazy chaos, right? And in our own personal lives. We also are pursuing a pursuit of purpose because we do have a sense that there is something more going on than what just going through the motions every day and the roles, like I said, that we've signed up for. And that's exactly what's letting you know that you're already in your purpose and on your purpose. Okay. When you have that sense of feeling that there is something more to life than just going through the motions like a robot, that's a sense, that's a sign there is a purpose, right? The truth is we do have a purpose. We've just misunderstood it. And those of us that are helping other people, we've misinterpreted it, right? It's not something more. We're not trying to get, like a lot of people say, I know there's more to life than this. It's not that we want more or that our purpose is more. It's actually that it's a deeper thing. It's a deeper thing. And we've been trying to make sense out of purpose and to make sense out of our life. And in trying to do that, we've just kind of complicated it, right? Me too. I get it. So what happens when we make this quest for purpose and we start pursuing is we don't know what it is, right? So we don't know if we found it, if we've got the right thing, if we're on purpose, in our purpose. So that just gives us more confusion, more doubt, more anxiety, more worry. And it really just widens the gap, right? Between us and what we think we're supposed to do, between us and this sense and this feeling that there's something more to do. And it also triggers us that we might not have it, right? That we might not get it right before we die. And we would end our lives. At the end of our lives, we would have some regrets. We would have that wishful thinking. We would feel like we wasted our potential and that this whole life was just really for nothing, right? That would be the most disappointing part. And I think that's what causes part of the sternness. So my invitation to you is to consider refreshing your understanding of purpose, be open to an understanding and a definition. And here I'm going to share with you what I have come to after a lot of research and reflection, observation, training, reflection and journaling and introspection, both in my own pursuit of my purpose and my life and my contribution, as well as my clients, working with them and observing them in their expression and experience of finding your purpose. And this is what I've come to realize. Your purpose on the planet is simply to grow and evolve into the next version of yourself on a path to what is a dynamic expression of yourself. So your purpose on the planet is simply to grow and evolve into the next version of yourself on this path to a dynamic expression of yourself. I'm going to get a sip of water. So what that means is, as you're living and growing and experience in day-to-day life, you're growing in your knowledge, in your skills, and in your abilities. And you start to form thoughts and beliefs and generate ideas just a natural, it is happening all the time. And you start to have little changes or big changes in a variety of things, in a variety of depths, in different areas of your life. So rather than seeing life as we've always done before, like a timeline drawn out, like a number line from math class or whatever, you have this timeline where we have these little dots of life on our linear path. You can now see that life is really more a series of personal growth experiences, and each one takes you to another version of yourself. So if you think of a spiral, you're going to a next version and the next version and the next version. Like you had baby food, then you had little solids, soft solids, then you could eat harder, complex food. And just like that, growth is a spiral. You're evolving to the next version of yourself. You could crawl, then you could walk, then you could ride a bike, then you could surf or ride a skateboard or whatever you do. So rather than seeing it like linear, we can see it as an evolution, more like of a spiral where you're going to your next and next version of yourself. And so your role, your job, your purpose is simply to navigate those cycles, those changes, the phases in that cycle of change, right? And continue to evolve into this dynamic expression of your highest potential. And nobody else can do it for you. And nobody else has the path, right? So you can take a lot of advice and information, but you sort of have to figure it out on your own. I don't mean on your own, but your path is different. Your path is going to be different because it's the highest expression of you. So you want to make sure that it fits you, what you're here for, right? So how do you do that? Well, most of us stumble and bumble and mumble our way through trying to make sense out of life. Totally get it. I've been there myself. And we're at the risk of staying stuck. I should say we're at the risk of staying stuck without some kind of what I call spiritual transformational technologies or techniques that will move us to the next level. So I'm going to share my framework for that evolution here in a minute, but you can imagine if you don't use a tool to get you unstuck, then you could just spend your life staying stuck there. And that's what you find. You find older people who, quote, should have figured it out by now. And I sometimes have applied that to myself. And they're still stuck in a certain part of this evolution. And as we evolve, things change. So if you see an older person still stuck in blaming the world and the universe and the school and the government and the neighbors and the in-laws and whoever, if you find somebody that's older that is still stuck blaming and shaming people and lacking ownership and taking responsibility for their life, they simply haven't evolved. It doesn't make them good or bad. It just means they're on their path, right? They're on their cycle and they're at a different path in a different stage in their evolution, and they just haven't evolved. That's it. So lack of judgment, no judgment there, just that's where they're on their path. And I believe that we're all on a spiritual path. And if we're willing to do the work, we continue to grow into our next version of ourselves. Now, I hear the phrase, our next best version, our next better version, or a better version of yourself. And that's judgment. That's assessment and evaluation. And that's not really serving us. So it's not really better. You're not better at 3 because you can walk. You were a beautiful person when you were born and couldn't walk and you couldn't eat. You were a divine spark. You are a piece of divinity. So it's not a better version of you. It's just the next version of you, a more evolved, a more enlightened, and a more empowered version. So let's stop saying better, right? That's not serving us. So here's the framework. Here's a framework that's going to help you make sense out of the cycle of personal evolution. And maybe I'll throw up a slide or something that will help you see the visual, because I don't have a visual because I'm doing this in a video. But this will be a picture of a cycle of personal evolution that is going to help you make sense out of this path of purpose, because you don't need to pursue it. You're already on it, right? And purpose is, by the way, purpose is different than mission. So I'm going to speak to that briefly, because that might be what you're looking for when you're looking for purpose. And I'll uncover mission, which is your life's assignment, in another training video. So for now, we're going to go into the framework for the natural evolution of your purpose. Okay. So here you go. You take one step, then another, then another, then another. There's no competition. There's no end destination. It isn't a contest. So you're just going to go one step and then another and then another. So think of it, like I said, as a spiral. You're just going up there, and you're not competing with anybody. You're just on your own purposeful journey, right? And there are spots along this cycle that you can get stuck on, and I'll share those with you as well. So here's the framework. I don't want to say number 1, because there is no number 1. A cycle means like it repeats, right? So first of all, You're in this expression, what I call the expression or experience, and sometimes I call it play, because you're just doing life as you know it. You're expressing who you are, what you've learned so far, the skills you have. You're just bumping along. It's not perfect. It's not chaos. You're just experiencing life, expressing who you are. Then something happens. Something happens, either big or little, drip by drip, or a big blow, and you get feedback from the universe, feedback from your life experiences. And if you get feedback that feels good and that you love and it inspires you and you get excited about it, then you just keep doing that. You keep learning more about it. You keep expressing. You keep learning, expressing. You stay in that good zone of what I love. If you don't love it, you can have all kinds of responses, right? You can be frustrated, you could be upset, you could be overwhelmed, or you can take it as feedback. And that's what triggers, unless you stay stuck there, just being mad about the feedback that you got, that you didn't love it. It's not fun. It's painful. Your piece got poked. That's what I say. But if you stay spinning in that, you can just stay stuck there, right? And that's what happens when we're kind of in the lower levels of evolution of ourselves, of our own journey, right? But next is I want to dig into this and figure out what's going on. So there's this stage of what I call awareness, and it's only for you if you stop and pay attention and wake up, right? And you increase your awareness about who you are, what the world is, what your beliefs are, all that stuff. You get insight and you get new information from yourself, but that requires you to stop and pause and do some introspection, some reflection. You think about your thinking, you think about your doing, you think about your being. It's information from you because you've stopped and thought about it, right? And looked at it. You paid attention. You woke up and looked at it. You can also get new information that's very helpful outside of your thinking. So you could get help from other people who give you feedback and observation. And I would pick people that you trust that have no other agenda than to serve you, right? By giving you information and observation. You can get information outside of yourself by taking assessments. That's one of my favorite tools at certain stages in this evolution because it's subjective, it's third party. It gives you insight into how you're thinking, how you're wired. And you can learn new information because you opened a book, because you Googled something, right? So you can get information from inside by reflection and outside by these other avenues, by having some observation and reflection from other people and from assessments and from just getting new information, right? Now, the awareness in this stage of the cycle depends on what state you're evolved at, right? So early in evolution, there's less reflection. Honestly, there's less reflection, and it's more about shame and blame and victim, and everybody's doing everything. And that's the kind of awareness. And they stoke it, right? We stoke it. We repeat to ourselves that other people are doing this to us, right? But as you grow and evolve, it turns more to frustration and leaning into looking at your own life. And this is where you take responsibility for your life, and you take responsibility that you want to change. Because by golly, sometimes when you're doing that awareness, you look at it and you realize the thing that's the golden thread through all this is me. So maybe this has to do with me more than other people, right? So as you grow, you take owner and responsibility. And as you get even more further down your path of purpose, you get into a wisdom place where the deeper pain and you, whether it's from deeper pain or you just get this amazing insight and grace, you recognize this is just feedback. And it triggers you to understand more of a oneness, and you let go of your ego-ness, right? As you continue to get aware, you realize it's not really all about you anymore, and that things aren't as they seem, right? Not everything is a duality. So here's a couple examples. Let's say when you committed a crime, at the most amazing kind of example, right? At one end, you commit a crime, and somewhere in the sentencing and in the courts and talking to people along the way, somebody drops a kernel of truth, and for some reason it takes a hold, right? It finds a foothold and it takes a hold, and you play it over and over and over again. And it's a good truth about the beauty of how your life could be if you took responsibility for it and didn't commit crimes and yada, yada. So you could play that over and over and over. And that's a seed of awareness that you play over and over. Now, it could also be that your neighbor, justifies why you did what you did, and you play that one over and over again. So the awareness you're going to get again is on that lower level. But let's say the awareness you got from a caring judge who wanted to drop a seed of truth that would inspire you to live a different life. then you play it over and over. That's a piece of awareness that you could get. Okay, let's say another example. You took one of those assessments, the Myers-Briggs, the wealth dynamics, the DISC, the dog animal, whatever those are. You took an assessment and it gave you objective information about how you're wired. And you're like, oh my God, that's why I do that. Oh, that's why they do that. Okay, so I'm going to stop trying to change everybody to be the same, because we don't have to do that anymore, because we're not living in primals and cave. We're not cave women and cavemen anymore. So I don't have to do that. So you could get some awareness from that. Let's say you get a diagnosis of ADHD or cancer, and in the process, somebody tells you that the foods you eat are going to affect your experience with this. And so you start to get awareness that food could really make me feel this way. So there's another way that you could get awareness, right? So how do you learn, and what you learn is all comes packaged in different ways. And that comes after the next little step, which is deciding to change, right? This is really there's this kind of muddy phase in this cycle of evolution that's kind of muddy. You have this information from your past, from your new awareness, and you're trying to discern and sort through what really matters, right? You're sorting through this awareness of what you have from the past and what is you've learned in this recent review of awareness, and you're deciding what's important and what's meaningful, and then you're deciding that you're going to do something about it, right? So you're going to decide, I need further study, I need to change my thinking, I need to change my stinking thinking, right? I need to change my behavior, I need to change my life. This is not enjoyable, this is not what I want, and I can have what I want. Oh my God, what a concept. How do you do that? I don't know, I'm going to learn how. So there's this deciding to decide, discerning and deciding stage. And the next stage of the cycle of change in this beautiful path of purpose that everybody's on is some level of mastery, what I call mastery. So in this stage, you're learning and mastering what it is that you decided on in that last phase. And in order to move on and express your next highest version of yourself, your next empowered or evolved or enlightened version of yourself, you do have to master something, right? Whatever it is that you've decided in your deciding stage, you engage in learning and mastering what it is you decided on. Now, in order to do this, you have to have two things. One, you have to have a strong intention. I'm going to master this, not just randomly be interested. If you're randomly interested, I know from experience, it's just going to lead to more confusion and long-term doubt and wandering off the path, back and forth, off and on the path, right? So to be successful in this phase, you need to have strong intention that you're going to master this to grow. I'm going to master this. I'm going to get this. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life stuck in the spin cycle on this stage, right? The second thing is you have to be earnest, which means you have to be committed, which means you're going to do it whether you feel like it or not. So if you're going to change something, to master it, you have to do it whether you feel like it or not. You can't cater to your emotional state that day of what that feels like, what that looks like. It's a willingness and a commitment. That's what it's going to take to move you to the next cycle. And if you don't have those, you're not going to master the knowledge, the skills, the ability, whatever it is that's going to take you to the next phase, the phase of expression and experience. So now we're kind of around the circle to expression and experience, the phase where you're applying what you've learned, you're living into the next evolution of expressing everything that you are with intention. You've moved past blocks, you've moved past barriers, you've moved past things that have held you back, and you're living in the next version of yourself until you get feedback, either drip by drip by drip or boom, right? One big dose. And that can either trigger you to spin around in overwhelm and be mad that it happened, like something poked your piece and you're just going to stay mad about it for a while. Or you can use that as a trigger to stop spinning around and get more awareness. Pull off the road, take a rest stop, go back into the awareness mode, and then back into the sorting and sifting, deciding to decide what needs to be changed, and begin the mastery of whatever you've decided in that decision-making process so that you can come back around and express it before you get feedback, which triggers you to get awareness, which triggers you to decide what you want to change, which triggers you to master something new, which triggers you to express it. And these could be big things or little things. These could be related to your profession or not. It's an evolution of the version of you, your dynamic, unique self. So it's not just about a job per se or a big, mission that you have to do. It's all part of your divine path of purpose. It happens without you needing to control much of it. really. You just get to choose whether you want to stay stuck or not, to decide which, if you're ready to step into the next phase of the cycle. And one of the most challenging things that I've seen and experienced myself is that it's almost every time you cycle up to the next evolution of yourself, you have to release what got you there, because you mastered that. It got you here. Now you've got new information. You're deciding what needs to change. And so you have to master something new. And to master something new, you almost always have to let go of something that got you where you got. That's really challenging, because it got you so many good things. It got you to a next level. So you don't want to let go of it. But I promise you that when you let go of that thing before, it got you to a new level. So it's totally worth it. The trick is to understand these cycles and these phases, and not be too attached, to anything, and then lean into the next one so that you can keep moving up into the next version. Because I guarantee the next version of you, you're delighted in. When you get there, you are delighted in. So when you continually decide to make the most of these series of personal growth experiences, you're also going to have the universe and the cosmos and God and whatever your higher power and connection there, you're going to have it all supporting you, because it's designed for you. It's how it's supposed to be. So you're going to be going through those motions and cycles, not the motion, but the motions of the cycles, but you're held up by this framework of the universe or God, which is super empowering to me, right? You're not out there doing this by yourself, I promise. Right? And right next to you is somebody on their cycle of change, reinventing themselves, right? So your mission, though, your mission and your life's assignment. Now that, like I said, is something different, but it is woven into this path of purpose. And I promise I'll cover that in another training, because there is a divine purpose for that as well. Your incarnation, your being here on the planet at this time, is to express yourself in specific ways, in unique ways, that contributes to the whole advancement of the entire human race, or you wouldn't be here, right? So it's super important, and you matter. You have to show up, and we need you, right? So you do matter. I will cover that on another training. But for today, again, my invitation is to quit pursuing your purpose, because you're already on your path of purpose. You're living in your purpose right now, to become more fully yourself, and less about the ego, to become more fully one and more fully your expression of love itself. You're here. The universe is supporting you 1,000% to express the divinity that is you, the spiritual being that you are, while you're here on the physical. You know, you've heard this, one of my favorite friends, Christopher, used to say, you're a spiritual being having a physical experience. So the spiritual, I hope I said that right, the spiritual being is evolving. That's your purpose, the evolution of your spiritual self, right? Here on the planet, having a physical experience. Your purpose on the planet is simply to grow and evolve into the next version of yourself, to be a dynamic expression of your potential. So I hope you found this helpful, and I invite you to leave a comment below and share this with somebody else who has been pursuing their purpose and looking for an answer to that. And I wish you so much peace and playfulness.